Evil kings keep doing their evil deeds. Here we go now. Look, friends, history class doesn't have to be boring. I know at school teachers used to put you to sleep with boring historical information, but real history doesn't put you to sleep. Real history is full of blood, betrayal, family murders, and kings going crazy saying, "I am God." Today, I'm going to tell you about 4 magnificent psychopathic kings. These aren't ordinary, "oh, he was a bit bad" kings. These are amoral characters at the level that will make you say, "Damn, did this man really do this?" And the best part is that all of these actually happened. Have you watched Game of Thrones? Great series, but most of the characters in that series were inspired by real historical figures. Did you love Cersei Lannister? Wait until you see Catherine de' Medici. Did you find Joffrey bad? Charles IX says, "Hold my wine." William Shakespeare wrote, "Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown." Basically, being king is a shitty job. Everyone tries to kill you, you can't trust anyone, and you can't help constantly thinking, "I wonder if I was poisoned today." But some kings weren't just victims. Some were the monster itself. On today's list, we have a French child king who fell under his mother's psychological influence and massacred tens of thousands of people. A Spanish psychopath who imprisoned his wife, killed his brothers, and finally got stabbed in the face. A Chinese maniac who exhausted his treasury for love, invented torture devices, and set himself on fire. And a Russian maniac who froze thousands because of his paranoia, killed his own son, and died while playing chess. Are you ready? Because this journey will overflow with blood, tears, family drama, and a sufficient amount of "but why, bro, why" moments. Fasten your seatbelts. Welcome to the dark side of royal thrones.
Okay, folks, now I'm going to tell you about a little prince born in the 1550s in France. More specifically, in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, in north-central France. His name is Charles IX, but you can call him Chuck. After all, we're friends now, right? Chuck's life actually didn't start badly. He's a prince, his father Henry II is king, he has a bright future ahead. He's growing up in the palace, getting the best education, wearing nice clothes. All he had to do was wait for his father to age, get a bunch of wisdom and governance lessons from him, then calmly ascend to the throne. Classic prince story, right? But his father, Henry II, one day decided to do jousting. You know what nobles did in those times? You wear armor, ride a horse, charge at each other with lances. Fun, right? Actually, it wasn't. In 1559, at a jousting tournament, his opponent's lance broke. Wooden splinters went inside Henry's helmet, one stuck in his eye, right in the eye. The man literally lanced himself through the eye. After writhing in pain for 10 days, he caught an infection and died. Quite an embarrassing death, let's admit. How did he die? In a jousting tournament. Wow, was he a brave warrior? Nope, a wooden splinter got in his eye. But death is death after all, and a king's death means a prince ascending to the throne. Wait a minute. First, his older brother, Francis II, ascended to the throne. He was only 15 years old and was like a complete health problems disaster. And in 1560, he caught an ear infection, it turned into a brain abscess, then he died 1 year later. Congratulations, Charles, your term. In 1560, it was time for Charles to ascend to the throne. Mathematicians among you will have noticed this. Someone who ascends to the throne in 1560, if born in 1550, is 10 years old. Congratulations, you calculated correctly. Now get yourself a cookie. The little croissant-shaped child had now become king, but couldn't even get rid of a fly. I mean, the guy is 10 years old, can't even decide what to eat for breakfast, but now he has to rule France. Frankly, a terrible idea. So, until Charles came of age, real power passed to his mother, Catherine de' Medici, and this woman was on another level. Catherine came from an Italian noble family, the Medici family. You know, the wealthy Italian family that financed the Renaissance, art collectors who got a doctorate in political manipulation. Catherine didn't just want to run the kingdom, she wanted power. Raw, pure, absolute power. and she would use her son like a puppet to obtain it. Now, at that time in France, there was a serious religious fight between Catholics and Protestants. But aren't they both Christian, you might ask? Yes, they both believe in the same God, worship Jesus, read the Bible. They just interpret some teachings differently. But this small difference was completely sufficient to kill each other. Catholics were the majority, about 90% of the population was Catholic. Protestants, especially the subgroup called Huguenots, were a persecuted minority. They were only about 10% of France's population. But this 10% was very loud and very determined. Violence was slowly escalating. Street fights, church raids, occasional murder cases, classic 16th century European fun. Catherine proposed a solution, the Edict of January in 1562. The basic message was this: okay, we'll tolerate you, you can worship, but stay calm, behave, and follow the rules. And don't worship in our churches, go worship outside the city. The Huguenots accepted this as better than nothing, but Catholic rulers didn't look favorably on this. One of them was Francis, Duke of Guise. This man already hated the Huguenots because a conspiracy had recently been organized against him.
Known as the Amboise Conspiracy, some Huguenot nobles had tried to remove Francis from power. The plan failed, the conspirators were caught and brutally executed. He didn't forget this. On March 1, 1562, Francis was passing through the town of Vassy. There he saw about 100 to 200 Huguenots worshipping in a barn. Technically, it was legal. They were outside the city. But Francis didn't care. "These are on my land," he said, "and I don't want Protestant worship here." He sent his men. First, an argument started, then shoving, then someone threw a stone, then someone else drew a sword. Result? 74 Huguenots dead, hundreds injured. This incident started the first religious war in France, and these wars would continue for the next 36 years. So, what does this have to do with Charles? A lot. While the religious wars continued, Charles became a target. The Huguenots tried to kidnap him several times. They tried to kill him several times. Once his palace was besieged in Amboise. He was 12 years old. He was watching the war from the window. These kinds of things badly affect a child's psychology, and it makes it a bit difficult for the king to empathize with the Huguenots, as you can imagine. When he turned 13, Charles said, "Mother, enough now. I'm big enough. I can rule and govern the country on my own now." In 1563, he declared that he had reached legal maturity and took full authority. But in reality, his mother, Catherine, was still whispering in his ear. In every meeting, every decision, every policy, Charles was just a puppet, now old enough to know it. Throughout the rest of the 1560s, the wars continued. The First Religious War lasted from 1562 to 1563. The Huguenots were defeated, but not completely suppressed. The Second Religious War continued from 1567 to 1568. The result was the same again. The Third Religious War, 1568 to 1570, and again. Every war meant thousands of deaths. Every war meant millions leaving the royal treasury. And every war divided France more. By 1570, Charles was only 20 years old, but quite worn out. Thousands of people had died. The royal treasury was depleted. The country was falling apart. Charles had to end these wars once and for all, and he made a plan. Or rather, his mother made a plan, and Charles accepted. In 1572, Catherine and Charles found a great idea: political marriage. Charles's sister Margot, known as Margot, was ultra-Catholic. Henry of Navarre was one of the leading Huguenot leaders, young, handsome, charismatic. If we want peace between two religious groups that are trying to kill each other no matter what, Catherine thought, maybe if we marry them it will work. On paper, it seemed like a good plan. In reality, a complete disaster. The wedding was held in Paris on August 18, 1572. The wealthiest and most influential Huguenot leaders, Gaspard de Coligny, Louis de Condé, and others, flocked to watch the wedding. Paris was full of Huguenots, thousands of them. The Catholics were uncomfortable. Why are these Protestants here? Are they planning something? Do they want to overthrow us? Paranoia spread. 4 days after the wedding, an assassination attempt occurred. Target: Admiral Gaspard de Coligny, one of the main Huguenot leaders whom Charles trusted and consulted. An assassin hired by a noble shot at Coligny, but only wounded him. Coligny survived. Charles was very angry. "Who did this?" he shouted. "I want justice. I protected this man." But behind the scenes, Catherine had panicked because she had planned the assassination. Catherine thought that Coligny had too much influence over Charles. He was distancing him from Catholic interests. He was dragging him into a war against Spain. Coligny had to die. But now Coligny was alive, and Charles was investigating. What did Catherine do? She manipulated her son. "Charles," she said, "the Huguenots are trying to overthrow you. The assassination of Coligny was to distract you. Now they're planning a rebellion. They brought them all to Paris. They'll attack tomorrow." "What?" said Charles. But Coligny was my friend. "He was using you," said Catherine. "If we don't act now, they'll kill you. They'll kill me. They'll take over the kingdom." Catherine convinced him for hours. Other Catholic advisors joined in. Finally, Charles broke down. "Okay," he said. "What should we do?" "Kill the leaders," said Catherine. "Only the leaders. Quick and clean. It'll be over by morning." Charles approved. But quick and clean never happened. August 24, 1572. Shortly before midnight, the city bells rang. The signal had been given. Catholic militants and royal guards poured into the streets with pre-prepared lists. First target: Coligny. They raided his house, found him in bed. They stabbed him repeatedly with swords. Then they threw his body out the window onto the street. Then they cut off his head and took it to the Queen. But they didn't stop there, because the Parisian Catholics, who had already hated the Huguenots for years, saw this as a signal. The king wants us to kill them, and a complete massacre began. Houses were gone door to door. Everyone suspected of being Huguenot was dragged into the street and killed. Men, women, children, elderly. It didn't matter. Bodies were thrown into the Seine River. There were so many bodies that the river turned blood red. Within a few days, 3,000 to 5,000 Huguenots were killed in Paris alone. But the massacre didn't stay in Paris. When the news reached other cities in France, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Lyon, Rouen, local Catholics also started their own massacres. The king approved. We can kill Protestants. Over the coming weeks, 10,000 to 30,000 Huguenots were systematically massacred throughout France. The numbers are disputed. Some historians say 10,000. Some go up to 100,000. We'll never know the truth. But the result was clear. It was one of the bloodiest events in French history. What did Catherine and Charles expect? If we kill the Huguenot leaders, the movement will collapse. The Protestants will surrender. There will be peace. What happened? The Huguenots went rabid. The massacre didn't destroy them. It radicalized them. Surviving Huguenots armed themselves. They set up their own armies. They rebelled. The Fourth Religious War began in 1572. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. The religious wars continued until 1598. They continued 24 years after Charles's death. King Charles never saw peace. Immediately after the massacre, Charles celebrated. "We destroyed the traitors," he shouted. "We saved France." But a few days later, regret began. According to legend, Charles began having nightmares recalling the nighttime horror of the massacre. One day he was boasting about the savage massacre. The next day he was saying his victims' screams were following him. Once on a hunting trip, he saw a deer covered in blood and started screaming, "Blood! Blood! Everywhere! Stop! Won't it stop?" His mental health rapidly deteriorated. He was constantly sweating. He couldn't sleep. His paranoia increased. And his mother? She made things even worse. Catherine placed all the blame on Charles. She said, "I only gave advice. You were the one who decided." To her people, "My son went crazy. I tried to stop him, but he didn't listen." Charles was now completely alone. On top of that, in the spring of 1574, he caught tuberculosis. His condition rapidly worsened. Coughing, fever, vomiting blood. On May 23, 1574, when his nurses entered his room, they saw blood flowing from his ears. King Charles IX died a few hours later, at age 23. His last words were reportedly, "So much blood, so much murder. What bad advice I received. God, forgive me. Don't deprive me of mercy." So, was Charles IX really evil, or did he just get a losing hand? We'll never know this, but we know this. If you grow up under the control of a psychopathic mother, if you become king at 10, if you're under constant threat of being killed, if you're of weak character and your mentors tell you to massacre, you probably won't come out a good person. Was Charles a monster? Maybe. Was he a victim? Definitely. Can he be both? History tells us yes.
Now let's look at someone born in 1334 in the Kingdom of Castile, Peter the First of Castile, or, as he's known, Peter the Cruel. But wait, his supporters called him Peter the Just. Same man, two completely opposite names. Interesting, right? Little Peter grew up and became a handsome man, 1.80 meters tall, blonde, blue-eyed, with sharp facial features. He was hardworking, well-educated, could think strategically. He had the potential to be a great leader. But he was learning from a bad example, his father. His father, Alfonso XI, was a ruthless king. You actually had to be in that age. If you were too soft, your enemies crushed you. If you were too tyrannical, your own people overthrew you. A fine line. Alfonso was dancing on this line, and he was mostly successful. He worked tirelessly to expand his kingdom. He fought against Muslim Andalusia. He tried to control the Strait of Gibraltar, and he arrested his political rivals, usually executed them without trial. You betray me? Okay, no need for court. To the scaffold. It's quite clear where Peter's future policies were influenced from. In 1350, King Alfonso XI caught the plague. He got sick while besieging Gibraltar. He died within a few days, and he left the throne to Peter. The determined prince was crowned and became king of the Iberian kingdoms of Castile and Leon in the same year. He was 16 years old. But it wasn't a peaceful transition, because Alfonso had a mistress, Leonor de Guzman. And this woman wasn't just a mistress, she was the woman Alfonso really loved. He didn't even care about his wife, Maria. Leonor bore Alfonso 10 sons, Peter's half-brothers, and they wanted the throne for themselves, especially one, Enrique. Enrique thought, "I'm also Alfonso's son, why should Peter be king?" Peter's mother Maria knew this, so what did she do? As soon as her husband died, she had Leonor arrested and executed her in 1351. "Problem solved," said Maria. But 10 sons were still alive, and they wanted revenge. When Peter was crowned, he was only 16 years old. He sometimes received political advice from his still-living mother. One of the pieces of advice, political marriage. Maria wanted an alliance with France, so she arranged a marriage with one of the French princesses, Blanche of Bourbon. She was 14 years old. They married in 1353. The wedding ceremony was held in Paris, a magnificent feast, thousands of guests. "Peter, do you accept Blanche as your lifelong spouse?" "Yes." But Peter's facial expression said, "Please get me out of here," because Peter already loved someone else, Maria de Padilla. 2 days after getting married, he abandoned Blanche and went to Maria. France was very angry. He abandoned our princess? But Peter didn't care. He had already secretly married Maria before Blanche, or at least he claimed so. He had 4 children with Maria. As for Blanche,
quite a sad story. Peter didn't just abandon her, he also imprisoned her in Medina Sidonia, in the southernmost part of the Iberian Peninsula, very far from the kingdom, to be quietly forgotten. In short, despite being queen, Blanche remained in captivity for 8 years. She died in 1361 under mysterious circumstances. Some historians believe she was poisoned by Peter's order. Some say a Tartar arrow was stuck in her head. Some say she was already sick, she died of natural causes. We'll never know the truth, but the timing is suspicious. Peter's children with Maria wanted to be legal heirs. Blanche was an obstacle. Blanche died, obstacle removed. Quite cruel, if you ask me. So why did some call him cruel while others called him just? Because it depends on who you ask. Rich nobles called him cruel because Peter tried to centralize power from the wealthy nobles. He seized their lands. He reduced their privileges. The nobles didn't like this tyrant, this cruel one. But the people called him just because Peter gave a platform to the people, to minorities, especially to Jews and Muslims. At that time in Castile, Jews and Muslims were discriminated against. Peter provided legal protection. The people liked this. This king thinks of us. So Peter wasn't a monster. He was complex. He was ruthless to his enemies. He was just to his supporters. Classic, depends on perspective situation. But the nobles didn't like him, and they had power. This chaos created an environment where someone wanted to overthrow the king. And who emerged? The half-brothers. Enrique, Frederick, Tello, Sancho, all Alfonso's sons from Leonor. They all thought, the throne belongs to us, not Peter. They tried many rebellions. Peter suppressed them all, and then executed them all. Once he captured his brother Frederick. Frederick begged, "Brother, please, we share the same blood." Peter didn't respond. He signaled his men. Frederick was torn to pieces before Peter's eyes. Peter was reported to be watching with a sweat-eating grin. He also killed their mother, Leonor. Okay, technically his mother killed her, but Peter approved. But one brother managed to escape, Enrique. Enrique fled to France. There he came under the protection of French King John II. "My brother is a tyrant. Help me overthrow him." France, interesting, but what's in it for us? Enrique, if I become king, I'll be your ally. France, deal. But not just France. The neighboring kingdom of Aragon also hated Peter. King Pere III of Aragon, another Peter, confusing, I know, supported Enrique. Thus, in 1356, the War of the Two Peters began. Castile versus Aragon, Peter versus Pere. Result? Castile destroyed Aragon. Peter won. Pere fled. Enrique remained in exile. "Problem solved," said Peter. But no, it wasn't solved, because in 1366, Enrique returned, and this time he was stronger. He had the support of France and Aragon. He also had French mercenaries under the command of Bertrand du Guesclin. Enrique infiltrated Castile. The people joined him because they were fed up with Peter. His taxes were too high. The wars didn't end. Enrique managed to dethrone Peter. Peter fled to England. He asked for help from the King of England, the Black Prince Edward. Edward? Okay, but in return, I want Welsh lands. Peter, deal. In 1367, the Battle of Nájera occurred. Peter and the English army versus Enrique and the French army. Result? Peter won. Enrique fled again. Peter regained his throne. "Now the problem is definitely solved," said Peter. But Peter made one big mistake. He forgot to properly thank and pay the English for their help. The Black Prince Edward was very angry. "We fought for you, killed people, and no payment?" Peter, the royal treasury is a bit empty." Edward, "Then deal with it yourself." The English left Spain. Peter was now alone. Back at the helm, Peter systematically tortured and executed all the nobles he thought had supported Enrique, often without even evidence. "You supported Enrique." "No, I didn't." "Execute him." Paranimo was at its peak. Peter didn't trust any advisor, any noble. The political system collapsed. People feared Peter, but at the same time hated him. Seeing the perfect opportunity, Enrique attacked once more in March 1369, Battle of Montiel. Peter was defeated, his army scattered. Peter shut himself in Montiel Castle. Enrique surrounded the castle. Peter tried to escape, but was caught and came face to face with Enrique. According to legend, the two physically wrestled. Enrique knocked Peter to the ground and stabbed him in the face. Peter won. The cruel died at 35. Enrique finally took the throne. He became Enrique II. He ruled for 10 years, then died of heart failure. Was Peter really cruel? He abandoned his wife, imprisoned her, probably had her killed. Cruel. He executed his brothers. Cruel. He killed people without evidence. Cruel. But at the same time, he gave rights to minorities. Just. He punished corrupt nobles. Just. He thought of the people. Just. So Peter wasn't a monster. He was complex. He was ruthless to his enemies. He was just to his supporters. Classic, depends on perspective situation. But the nobles didn't like him, and they had power. This chaos created an environment where someone wanted to overthrow the king. And who emerged? The half-brothers. Enrique, Frederick, Tello, Sancho, all Alfonso's sons from Leonor. They all thought, the throne belongs to us, not Peter.
King Zhao, China's first supervillain. In Chinese history, King Zhao of the Shang dynasty is a textbook example of how greed, corruption, and tyranny can drive a leader to moral decay. After his death, Zhao was given a posthumous title, King Zhao. The word Zhao was the name of the saddle piece that wraps around the horse's tail and rubs against the horse's butt. So basically, they called the guy King Asswiper. Quite a creative insult. In China, a ruler's posthumous title was very important. Good rulers received honorable titles, like Wen, cultured, or Wu, warrior. Bad rulers, derogatory titles. The title Zhao received was one of the most derogatory in history, so this guy really screwed up. Now, because he was an ancient king, historians generally have to rely on excessively exaggerated and embellished stories and legends. Zhao's story largely comes from the book Shi Ji, Records of the Grand Historian, written by Sima Qian. Sima Qian was a great historian, but he also loved dramatic narration, so some details may be exaggerated. Take what's said for this section with a grain of salt. Also, forgive my pronunciations. Chinese is a very difficult language. And subscribe. King Asswiper began his reign around 1075 BC. According to ancient Chinese historian Sima Qian, the king was extremely talented. Zhao was tremendously strong. He could kill a wild ox with his bare hands. Mentally sharp, he could defeat his opponents in any argument. Doubtful, but whatever. Basically, Zhao was a super smart and super strong man. He could have been a good king, but he wasn't because he met a woman. Her name was Da Ji. According to legend, Zhao attacked the Yusu clan during a military expedition. The clan immediately surrendered and offered one of their most beautiful women as a peace gift, Da Ji. Zhao saw her and fell in love. "You are mine," he said. Da Ji smiled. "Of course, Your Majesty." But Da Ji wasn't just beautiful. She was also a sadist. According to some legends, Da Ji had been possessed by a nine-tailed fox spirit. She had been sent to destroy the Shang dynasty from within. Is it true? Probably not, but symbolically true. Da Ji destroyed Zhao. Zhao did everything to make Da Ji happy. Although he was a competent strategist who could expand his empire with military campaigns, Zhao was blinded by power. He neglected state affairs. He didn't listen to his advisors. He was only interested in entertaining Da Ji. According to legend, Zhao did the following. Wine lake. Da Ji loved wine, so Zhao built her a huge wine lake. How? He had the ground dug. A big pit was formed. Then he filled that pit completely with wine. He ordered 3,000 people to swim, drink, have fun in the wine lake. They were all naked too. Many got drunk and drowned, but Zhao didn't care. Da Ji was entertained. That's enough. Hanging meat forest. Zhao created a meat forest by hanging meat from trees. People walked among the trees, plucking and eating whatever meat they wanted, naked. Basically, the ancient Chinese version of an orgy party. Silk-tearing ASMR. Daji had a strange fetish. She loved the sound of silk being torn. So Zhao had the kingdom's most expensive silks brought. Then he tore them in front of Daji, just so she could hear the sound. Millions worth of silk in the trash. His advisors, "Your Majesty, the royal treasury is emptying." Zhao, "Shut up. Daji is happy, that's enough." But Zhao wasn't just a luxury addict, he was also a sadist. Whoever criticized him, he tortured and killed. The most famous torture device, Pao Lao, the roasting pillars. How did it work? A bronze pillar with a roaring fire underneath. They heat the pillar with red-hot coals, so hot that if you touch it, your hand melts. Then they grease the pillar. Then they force the prisoner to walk on the pillar. If you cross to the other side, you'll be set free. They couldn't cross. As their feet burned, they slipped and fell into the fire. They burned alive. Zhao and Daji watched this as entertainment. Daji was clapping. Again! Again! Alternative version, they placed the pillar vertically. They chain the prisoner to the pillar. They light a fire below. The prisoner slowly cooks to medium rare. You know, firm but with a bit of give. Zhao and Daji also watched this as entertainment. Historical records say the king and his concubine viewed the prisoner's suffering as pure cinema. When you live life to extremes, empty the treasury and are a tyrannical bag of shit to the people want to kill you. Even Zhao's relatives begged him, "Please change your ways, spend less, listen to the people, otherwise they'll rebel." Zhao, "Shut up. I am king. I am God. No one can stand against me." But they could. The leader of the Zhao kingdom, a different Zhao, confusing, I know, Ji Fa, had been quietly gathering power for years. He united other clans around the kingdom. Zhao is a tyrant. He has lost the mandate of heaven. Our duty is to overthrow him. The clans joined. In 1046 BC, Ji Fa attacked the Shang capital with a large army. Battle of Muye. Zhao's army didn't want to fight because they hated Zhao. Many switched to the other side. Zhao was defeated. Seeing his army scattered, Zhao fled to his palace. He surrounded himself with all his treasures. Gold, jewels, silks, all were there. Then he set the palace on fire and stayed inside. "If I can't be king, I can't be anything." He died in flames at age 59. What did Daji do when she heard of her beloved king's death? According to some versions, she strangled herself. According to some versions, she was caught and executed by Ji Fa. According to legend, the nine-tailed fox spirit escaped from Daji's body and was never seen again. Was Daji really an evil spirit? Probably not, but symbolically, yes, because Daji fed Zhao's worst instincts. Zhao already had selfish, sadistic tendencies. Daji normalized and encouraged them. Was Zhao a monster? Yes. Did Daji make him a monster? No, but she released the monster. And thus, the Shang dynasty collapsed. The Zhao dynasty came to power. Ji Fa became King Wu, and Chinese history continued.
Ivan IV the Terrible, Russia's paranoid czar. The word terrible is being thrown around like a frisbee at a blind picnic. It's been used so much it's lost its original meaning, just like the word literally. Nowadays, terrible means very bad, awful, mediocre. This movie is terrible equals this movie was awful. But its original meaning was different. Terrible equals terror-inspiring, horrific, ominous by nature, pure evil in essence. Look, the difference is, oh, this is terrible equals a bad experience. Terrible equals you will die. That's why Ivan IV was called this. He wasn't just a bad king, he was a terror-spreading king. The trend continues. Ivan began his reign young. When he was crowned Tsar of all Russia in 1547, he was only 16 years old, but he had already had a traumatic childhood. At age 3, his father, Vasily III, died, probably by poisoning. At age 8, his mother, Elena Glinskaya, died, definitely by poisoning. Ivan is now an orphan. Power passed to noble families known as boyars. These boyars mistreated Ivan. They humiliated him, neglected him, even beat him. According to legend, Ivan was once starved and forced to sit in a corner
while the boyars feasted. These kinds of experiences permanently damaged Ivan's psychology. At age 13, Ivan had a boyar torn apart by dogs, his first murder, and not his last. When he was crowned in 1547, Ivan actually started well. His first years were peaceful and progressive. He revised the law code, established a regular army, gave rural areas self-government rights, made church reforms, expanded into Siberia. The people loved him, a good czar. But in 1553, everything changed. Ivan caught a deadly disease, probably typhus. He was lying on his deathbed, weak, exhausted. He asked something of his closest boyars. "Please, if I die, swear loyalty to my son Dmitri. Protect him." Dmitri was still a baby. Boyars. "Ivan, please." Boyars. "No." "Why?" "Because a baby can't rule Russia, and we don't want your family to rule." Ivan was very angry, but he couldn't do anything at that moment because he was dying. But then, a miracle happened. Ivan recovered. His health improved, but his trust didn't. "These boyars betrayed me, betrayed my son. I'll never forgive them." His advisors, "Your Majesty, maybe they just—" "Ivan, shut up." Paranoia began, and then personal tragedies came. 1560, his beloved wife Anastasia Romanovna died, probably by poisoning. Ivan believed this was the work of the boyars. "They killed my wife. They stole my happiness from me." There was no evidence, but Ivan didn't care. Paranoia was now turning into mania. In 1558, Ivan entered the Livonian War. Goal: to gain control of Old Livonia. This would give Russia access to the Baltic Sea. Trade routes would open. But Sweden, Poland, Lithuania, and other European powers opposed. The war lasted 24 years. Russia was economically destroyed. Famine began. Plague spread. Ivan was going crazy. In 1564, Ivan suddenly left Moscow. He wrote a resignation letter. "The boyars betrayed me. The church isn't helping me. I'm leaving the kingdom. Handle it yourselves." Moscow panicked. The boyars couldn't rule Russia on their own. The people would revolt. They begged Ivan, "Please come back." Ivan, "Okay, but I have conditions." "What do you want?" "Absolute power, on everything, especially the right to execute traitors." The boyars hesitated, but they had no other choice. Accepted. Ivan returned and started the Oprichnina period from 1565 to 1572. What was the Oprichnina? A system of dividing Russia in two. Oprichnina equals lands under Ivan's direct control. Zemshina equals lands ruled by the boyars, and Oprichniki equals Ivan's personal terror army, 6,000 men. They wore black, they rode black horses, they carried their symbols. Doghead equals "we'll bite the king's enemies." Broom equals "we'll sweep away the traitors." When you saw them, you ran. The Oprichniki's job: find and punish any potential treason. But it didn't require evidence. If an Oprichnik marked you as a traitor, you die. Thousands of boyars executed, exiled, their lands confiscated. Peasants were harshly crushed. Fear covered Russia. In 1570, plague hit Russia. Thousands died daily. Novgorod, one of Russia's richest cities, was paralyzed by plague, famine, and Ivan's tyranny. Ivan developed a conspiracy theory. Novgorod is planning to join Lithuania. They'll betray me. Was there evidence? No, but Ivan didn't care. January 1570, Ivan and the Oprichniki invaded Novgorod. They barricaded the city. No one could escape. Then they began systematic massacre. Houses were gone door to door. Those suspected of being traitors were captured. They were tortured for information, but there was nothing to know because there was no conspiracy. Torture methods: burning alive, throwing into the freezing Volkhov River, drowning under ice, chopping with swords, torment. Farms were destroyed. No food remained. The massacre lasted 5 to 6 weeks. Result: thousands dead. The exact number is unknown. Estimates range from 15,000 to 60,000. All valuables were looted, sent to Moscow.
Ivan then went to Pskov, another city. He was planning to massacre there too, but a holy man stopped him. Ivan, enough. If you continue, God will punish you. Ivan stopped. Maybe a bit of conscience still remained, or he was just scared. November 16th, 1581. Ivan saw his pregnant daughter-in-law, Elena Sheremetyeva, at home. Elena was dressed inappropriately, probably just comfortable clothes. Ivan was very angry. How dare you dress like this? And he attacked her, beat her. His son, Ivan Ivanovich, yes, same name, intervened to protect his mother. Father, stop, she's pregnant. Father and son entered a heated argument. Ivan the father went mad with rage. He hit his son's head with the heavy staff he was holding. A single blow. His son collapsed to the ground. Blood flowed. Ivan realized what he had done. No, no, my son! He collapsed to the ground. He embraced his son's body. He cried for hours. The famous Repin painting shows this moment. His son died a few days later. Elena had a miscarriage. Ivan had killed 2 people, his son and his grandson. Ivan completely broke down. He cried for days, banged his head against walls. What have I done? What have I done? In the following years, he tried for peace. He ended the Livonian War in 1582, made donations to monasteries, considered monasticism, but it was too late. His physical and mental health was destroyed. He was addicted to mercury, used as medicine at the time. It was actually poison. March 28, 1584. Ivan was playing chess. He suddenly had a stroke. He fell to the ground. He died a few hours later, at 53. Was Ivan IV the Terrible really terrible? Yes, he massacred thousands, killed his own son, ran a reign of terror. But at the same time, he modernized Russia, conquered Siberia, revised the laws. How does history remember him? Two-faced, hero and monster. A controversial figure in Russia today. Some, he was a strong leader. Some, he was a mass murderer. Both are true.
Conclusion. There you have it, folks. 4 kings, 4 reigns, ending in disaster. Charles IX, king at 10, his mother's puppet, ordered a massacre, went mad, died at 23. Peter the Cruel abandoned his wife, probably had her killed, massacred his brothers, lived with paranoia, got stabbed in the face. King Zo lived in luxury, made a wine lake, invented torture devices, set himself on fire. Ivan the Terrible froze thousands, killed his own son, died while playing chess. What did we learn? Absolute power absolutely corrupts. All of these kings had unlimited power. No one could say no to them. And what happened? They became monsters. Traumatic childhood equals bad leader. Charles, his father died early, grew up under his mother's manipulation. Peter learned ruthlessness from his father. Ivan, orphaned at 8, abused by the boyars. Your childhood matters. Paranoia kills. Peter, Ivan, both were extremely paranoid. Everyone is betraying me. Result? They killed innocent people. They collapsed the political system. Bad advisors equals disaster. Charles' mother, massacre. Zo's concubine, more torture. Ivan's oprichniki, kill everyone. If you have bad people around you, you make bad decisions. Does history repeat itself? Maybe. Today there are also autocrats, dictators, tyrants, same mistakes, same results. But if history teaches us one thing, no tyrant lasts forever. Charles died, Peter was killed, Zo burned himself, Ivan had a stroke. They all left, but the suffering they caused remained. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands died. Families were destroyed, cities were razed. That's why we must remember, history isn't just things that happened in the past. History is a warning. Don't do it again. Don't let it happen again. If you like this video, watch the other Evil Kings video. There's Nero, Caligula, Attila, Genghis Khan, and more. Link in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe because we release new history videos every week.
And if you have a suggestion, write "Tell about this king" in the comments. Thank you all. See you in the next video.